Welcome back to the Marketing on the Move podcast. My name is Savannah Abney, and I am a partner and the CEO of the Breezy Company. With me today is our Chief People and Accounts, Emily Hunter, to bring some great marketing wisdom. But even more exciting is our guest we have today, Tim Fortescue. Fortescue is one of my favorite clients I've ever worked with. He's an amazing communication coach, working with all kinds of massive brands like HubSpot, Asana, Meta, you name it. He is the communication guy and really understands how to help executives step into their leadership presence and communicate really well to drive business growth. So, Tim, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. It's good to see you.
First things first, just tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey, because I actually already know it a bit and it's super interesting, kind of where you started, how you got into what you're doing. Just give us a little summary of all of that.
Yeah, it was never meant to be an entrepreneurship journey. That's the interesting part of it. Probably 20 plus years ago now, I'm dating myself. The whole dream was to be a coach for a living. I was looking for ways to coach basketball. I was a basketball coach. The dream was do it and make a living doing it. And for about 12 to 15 years, I tried turning over as many stones as I could to make that happen. Along the way, I coached a lot of awesome players and teams that I hold fondly, but I never quite made it work. So I ended up being a high school basketball coach for most of those years. And for anyone listening, if you've played high school sports or if you've got kids who play travel or high school sports, those coaches make about enough to fill their gas tank, maybe. Now with culture of sports, I mean, it's year round. So they might not even be
Yeah.
able to fill their gas tank with the
Yeah.
stipends that they get. So you do it for love. And I love it. I loved it. Still do. But it just wasn't working. And then there was this moment of serendipity. It was 2014. I've been at it for a while and getting close to burnout. And then I had a career. My day job, I worked at the University of Michigan at the time. I was a fundraiser for their health system, their cardiovascular center. And we had this professional development workshop that was on all of our calendars. And the afternoon, we were supposed to go to this conference room and learn about public speaking. And I thought, cool, I don't have time for this, but let me show. Maybe I'll learn a thing or two. I'll sit in the back and take some notes and then duck out. And I went to this workshop and I was blown away. From the minute I walked in, I was engaged by the facilitator. I thought he did an awesome job. As I sat there, I was so immersed in the content that I started thinking, this is kind of how I want my practices to look with my players in basketball. I want lots of movement. I want people not getting stagnant. I want to go from thing to thing quickly. I don't want to lecture a bunch. And it was just, that was his approach. And so at the end of the half day, which just flew by, I remember I went up and I thanked the facilitator, just saying like, this was amazing. Thank you for doing this. And then I was going to leave, but he stopped me and he kind of held onto the handshake and said, you know, you could do this. I was like, what do you mean? Like you could do this. I've seen how you communicate in the exercises and in the room, and you could do what I do. And if you're ever interested, here's my card and I'll show you how it all works. I'm not trying to poach you from the University of Michigan, but you could take your vacation days. I've got some pretty cool clients, and he had some amazing clients in this small company he was building. And so I rushed back to my computer and emailed him. And next thing I knew, later that month, he was showing me, he taught me and other people um, how to do what he did. And then flash forward like a year later, went from being in a gym, coaching high schoolers and fundraising by day to now I'm in Facebook, Twitter, Google, Nike, ESPN, L'Oreal, Intel, just to drop a few big names. And it's like, like I'm leading the same kind of workshops that I was sitting in and getting more and more confident, but certainly feeling like, how am I even here? Am I
Mm.
the imposter syndrome was real.
Mhm.
And that was 2015. And since then it's taken off. I started my own business in 2021. So wanted to create more customized experience for clients. So I started 40 Watt Coaching, which is my company, in 2021. And it's been an awesome 5 years.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay, so let's get into starting 40 Watt. And obviously, we're biased towards marketing because that's what we do. So I just would love to hear, especially for founders and solopreneurs when they're first getting started. I feel like there's a lot of like fear around marketing. There's a lot of apprehension, confusion. It also is just very overwhelming because there's like a million things you could be doing. What's actually worth your time? Like trying to navigate all of that is really complicated. So, what were the things that you tried early as you were getting the company off the ground? What do you feel like worked? What would you do differently if you could, etc.?
I'm smiling so big. If people are listening, picture a big smile on my face because the pain points that you just heard from Savannah were all that's me. That's me to a T. I had no idea what I was doing with marketing. My background was fundraising, like I mentioned, but before that, for 10 years, I was in sales. I was in pharmaceutical sales. And so the name of the game there is working through this large list of potential clients that could be your clients and whittling it down to finding the best handful, like the 80-20 rule or even the 90-10 rule. Most of your business is going to come from a small group. So I had that part down. I didn't have anything else down other than the delivery, the ability to coach people, the ability to lead great workshops and build good content. But on the marketing side, I didn't even have a website when I started. I had a handful of clients before I even had a website. And so I was rushing, having a friend of mine who's a designer, an awesome designer, build me a website almost as a favor after I was already a business. And so that was my approach. My business got busy relatively quickly. I got smarter as to finding the right types of clients over the first few years, but quickly using kind of the seller's approach and starting with my own network really. And when I say sales, I mean it sounds a lot more intense than it is. I mean, I was asking people in my network if they'd take a call with me and ask for advice, tell them what I was thinking about doing with my business and if they had any ideas. And a handful of them said, yeah, and I think you could actually help my team or you could help my company. And that was where it all started.
It's awesome.
Very cool. Do you feel like there was a moment where things started to take a shift, where you started to notice things are actually moving forward now? What was that transition like from getting started to feeling like you're really on the up and up?
It started in that first year. I wanted to prove that the concept was going to work, that the concept was, can I make a living doing this my way, just me, with no clue about anything else other than delivering training content, coaching people, building curriculums. I didn't know legal, finance, marketing, any of the aspects of a business. And so I remember thinking, I'm going to give myself about 6 months to do this and maybe nine, looking at what did I have in the savings? How far could I stretch it and how far could I go? And I remember about 3 to 6 months in where I had a couple companies that were paying clients and one or two of them that recurred, where it was like, wow, we're going to work together more than one time. And I started to see, okay, I'm onto something, like this is working. And I actually was leaning into what I was good at for a change in terms of the real service, not the other aspects of the business, which I was lost, clueless. Um, but that's where, yeah, in that first 6 months, it was kind of like, this is working. And that was the first click. There were others along the way, but that was the first big one.
So, kind of still going down this path, but a little bit more now as opposed to back when. Let's talk about LinkedIn. Everybody has like a love-hate relationship with this platform. I think it's like we all know it's almost like a necessary evil at this point. It's like this thing we have to do to stay visible, but there's also a lot of, just annoyance around it too. So, what do you think that LinkedIn has like what role has it played in your business? How do you approach it now? What are sort of your feelings on it as a founder, particularly for your niche, for your space? Because there are a lot of different approaches to it based on industry and things like that.
Yeah, LinkedIn is the only platform I'm actively using. It has been since the beginning. I should air quote around using because before I met Savannah, before I started working with Breezy, I was using means I posted like twice a year. Hey, everybody, I've got a new company. I'm doing it my own way. And then like you wouldn't hear from me for another 6 months. So that was how it started. But I used LinkedIn because that was where I started looking through my network and thinking like, who can I connect with? Who can I ask for advice? Who can I have a Zoom coffee with, and talk about what I'm doing. So I was active on LinkedIn, but not in terms of content until I started working with Savannah. So it's been a journey with LinkedIn. I have a love-hate relationship with it, mostly love of LinkedIn, but the hate part was more just I just hated putting myself out there and videoing myself or talking about myself in any way. It's just not me, as probably a lot of people you work with. And so that was a huge leap for me to trust somebody, which was Savannah, that yes, you can do this. Yes, you do have stuff that people who might not even know you could benefit from. And even the people in your network who haven't heard from you in a while, you've got content that could help them too. So it's an evolving process, but yeah, that's the main one I use, and I get a ton of value from it.
It's funny to hear you say you probably work with people who aren't like me. I think you are more the rule than the exception. Most people we work with are people. So it's great to hear that that was a turning point and it contributed to some of the success, but that is so normal and I would say to anybody listening that is absolutely the standard and, we or whoever you're working with or finding research online about who else feels this way could be that thing that pushes you over the edge to actually get started for yourself.
Makes
I
sense.
actually think that what we do so much is actually coaching. We are practitioners, obviously, and we do actually produce assets and put things out there and create strategies and all of this. But so much of our job is actually just coaching and encouraging people that they can do this and that their voice matters, what they have to say has value, pushing people outside their comfort zone. What's kind of interesting is because you're a coach by trade, obviously, and there were a lot of things that I learned about coaching more holistically from your content that I then have been able to use with other clients in my sphere. And there's like a lot of like coaching it, there's a lot of there's like a conduit throughout coaching, like whatever it is, if it's communication, if it's executives, if it's business, finance, whatever it is, there's still that through thread or even sports. Like coaching is kind of coaching across the board. And if you can learn to do that, you can really kind of set yourself apart, whatever your niche is.
Makes total sense. Yeah, and to go back to the point you made at the beginning of your last statement, you are coaching. You were coaching me. It's so much of it for people in your field, if that's part of the audience here, I hope. It's it's a lot of handholding for somebody and reassuring and telling them that, yes, you do have something valuable to say. And yes, you can help people and you can also help your business as you're doing it. And so, yeah, there was a huge emotional component to putting yourself out there and having somebody that you trust, that earns your trust to work with you. That's a major asset.
And I have to have people do it for me too. I literally do this for a living, but the staff members on our team that manage my personal content, they have to push me too. Because I'll still say they'll have this idea. I'm like, oh, that's so cringe. I can't do that. Like, oh, I cannot film myself in public. Do it. Like, no, I can't. I can't. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can do it. And then, I tell my husband later that night, oh, you want me to do this? He's like, oh, I'll film you doing that. That's fine. Like, you should do it. Absolutely. Like, you need hype people in your life, but that's what I hope we can be in some ways for people who have a hard time putting themselves out there because it is hard. Even for people who do this for a living, it's difficult.
100%.
So let me ask you this. You have worked with huge companies. You also have done one-on-one coaching with executives. How do you feel like you've positioned your business to resonate with C-suite execs in these big spaces, whether it was for their whole team or if it was for them? Like you've really been able to position yourself as a pretty high level individual. How were you able to do that versus like, I mean, there's obviously communication coaches for all sorts of levels, but yours is definitely more of an elevated approach. How are you able to kind of position yourself that way?
It's a good question. And it's humbling to even think about it that way. Because when I started 5 years ago on my own, it was, can anybody, would anybody want to hire me? And I think that's probably just the journey of an entrepreneur. Would anybody want to pay for my service or buy my product or whatever it is? And so at the beginning, it was, would any team at any company be interested in this? And then, oh, yeah, it is. And then, sort of stepping further and further into it, I started realizing that there is a market. There's a market for senior leaders. And so the changes I've made in the 5 years I've been doing this has been around the way I tell my own story. And the way I tell my story is it's the way I tell it, which that part I've felt pretty solid about from the beginning. But the way my website told my story or tells my story, I've revamped that quite a bit. And it wasn't a design issue. It was just more, I wasn't telling my story. It was,
Mm.
I want people who click on 40wattcoaching.com to come and see it, to get the look and feel of it right away. And it's the same thing with the stories that I tell on LinkedIn, or the content I put out. It's the proposals I use, the templates, the one pagers. It's like every asset. My goal is to try to position it in a way that if a senior leader at a company saw this and they were sharing it with their team, saying, should we work with this person, that from the beginning there's a credibility of, it looks and feels like something that we should be looking at.
Yeah. You instantly have authority because of how you've presented yourself from the beginning.
Yes, and I also want to talk about that too, because that's an intimidating way to say it. And it's true, but also when I used to see that, when I'd read other people's content, authority, and what does that mean? Does that mean that I talk about that I'm the best, or does it mean that what does it really mean? Well,
Mm.
what I've stepped into is subtle. I've leaned into, like, my style is my style. I don't think there's anything heavy-handed about it, or authority isn't the word I would use, although I respect
Mhm.
that word totally.
Mhm.
It's what is my story, and how do I tell it? What is the look and feel of this whole thing? And that's been a journey, but it's
Yeah.
it's been worthwhile.
One more question for you, Tim, and we'll kind of wrap with this. I originally was going to ask you if you could give yourself one piece of advice going back from when you started your business, what would it be? But I actually think this might be a little more helpful for our audience. So you went from working in an actual communication company. I don't know if you categorize it as corporate, but more of a corporate sort of structure. Go out on your own as a solopreneur, and now you have your own company. What would you what advice would you give somebody who's going from that? So they're going from a larger company, they've been in the corporate world maybe 10, 15 years, whatever it is, and now they're stepping out into their own kind of space. They want to create more freedom, want to have more control over their offerings, all that. What would the advice be that you would give them?
I talk to people often, semi-often, that are in that boat. They're working for a company and they're thinking about going out on their own as a consultant, or as a contractor, or maybe a corporate trainer or teacher or coach. I talk to a lot of people about it, and usually the thing they say is, "Yeah, but I don't know what I would market, or I don't know what I would say, or what my service would be." And then within a couple questions that I ask, it's pretty clear you have a service, you have a marketable thing
Mhm.
here. The thing that you enjoy the most in your work, that's the thing that is probably, you could package it and that's your service. So I'd start with just leaning into you do have a differentiator. You have like something unique about the work you
Mhm.
do in your skill area. And there's not probably, there's definitely companies that would pay for it. So don't, like, this is me also coaching myself in the past. It's like, put that aside, like, put the imposter syndrome aside, acknowledge it, because most of us deal with it. I do. But
Yeah.
realize that if you're mid-career, or even an earlier side of the career, or late career, whatever stage you are, you've accumulated some expertise in certain areas. And assuming that that's the thing you want to bring to the market, you've got some unique stuff. So it's about reflecting and thinking, what really lights me up? What's the part of my work that I feel the most excited about? And then can I name it? Can I name that thing and describe it? And then once you get a paying client or two, then things start to roll. So I hope that would help somebody.
Yeah. I actually love the idea that what you said that you did originally. So, like, if I don't even have a paying client yet, but you mentioned I just started reaching out to people I'd previously worked with that were in companies just to ask for advice. And then would this be something that you would eventually pay for? Would just like basically doing a survey of your own network,
Yes.
starting there. That seems like a great place to kind of get the ball rolling.
That's exactly it, because even in places where it didn't end up in business, I got validated. I was talking to friends. I was talking to people in my network, people I used
Yeah.
to work with, or people that I actually coached when I was working for a coaching firm. And I was getting validated in every situation where, "Oh, it's so great that you're doing this. You're onto something here. I really like this for you," or something like that. Which at the time, when you're sitting by yourself as an entrepreneur, you don't have a team, you're dreaming a little bit, but you don't get a lot of that validation.
Yeah.
Maybe from
That's a great point.
the close friends and family around you, but to hear it from somebody who could potentially be a paying client, even though they're in your network. That matters a lot.
Yeah,
And then they
absolutely.
also occasionally lead to business, which is the best of both worlds.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Well, thank you so much for being here, Tim. Always fun chatting with you. You have great insights. Really appreciate your authenticity and just you're such a genuine person. And tell them where they can find more about you, maybe give you a follow, that kind of thing.
Sure, yeah. Follow me on LinkedIn. That's the platform I prefer. Tim Fortescue, TimFortescue. And then my company's name is 40 Watt Coaching. 40wattcoaching.com is the website, 40watt coaching.com. The quick story behind that, if I can,
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't even know that Savannah and I wrote about this or put this out, but
I think I know this story, but I don't know if we did or not. Yeah.
back in 5 years ago when I was debating, should I do this or not? Should I go out on my own? I started kicking around different names, and my nickname has always been 40. Fortescue is my last name. So you take this
Hmm.
Q off, and it sounds kind of like 40. So people had called me 40 for years. And I started playing with what if it's 40 watt, like a light bulb going off. And so I like, oh, there's something here. My designer friend made a logo for me, and I thought, okay, no, it's real. And I trademarked it, and I got the web domain. And then I started teaching out in the wild. I remember I was at a tech company and teaching a room full of technical people, like engineers, early on, and heard somebody say, "Hey, why did you name it 90 watt? It's like something brighter. 40 watt is like the dullest of the bulbs, one of them." And I was like, "Oh man, I didn't even think about that." I was like, "My nickname isn't 90; it was 40." So too late. I trademarked it, and so at least there's a funny story. There's a funny story behind it, and it's personal.
Yep. Absolutely. It also matters at the end of the day. Thanks so much, Tim. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Marketing on the Move. If you're looking for more ways to improve your marketing and build a scalable system to help your business grow, check out thebreezycompany.co or any of the resources linked in today's show notes.